Imagine this for a moment. What if everything you were ever told about what it means to be a man was quietly, systematically stripped away piece by piece until one day a major international magazine hands the title Man of the Year to a woman who openly identifies as queer and non binary in certain spaces, and the overwhelming response from actual men is nothing, no outrage, no protest, just a collective shrug and a turning away. This isn't some distant hypothetical. It's happening right now in 2025 with Cynthia Erivo on the cover of British GQ's Men of the Year issue, and the silence from men is deafening. Stick with me to the very end because by the time we're done, you'll understand why this moment isn't just another culture war headline. It's the final nail in the coffin of a society that spent decades telling men they were the problem, only to discover too late that men were also the solution. And now they're gone. If you're getting value from this, go ahead and hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more no holds barred, angry guy content. Turn on the bell so you never miss an upload. And listen, if you're tired of watching your wealth evaporate while the world falls apart around you, head over to Angry's Crypto Academy right now. I'll teach you step by step how to buy, sell, trade, and most importantly, protect your assets in this chaotic economy. The link is in the description. Pause the video if you have to and go check it out today. Knowledge is the only real power left. And let me take you back a few years because this didn't happen overnight. This was decades in the making. It started small. Boys in school being told that their natural energy was toxic, that roughhousing on the playground was a problem that needed medication, that competing too hard made them bullies. Teachers, mostly women, grading boys harder for the same work, diagnosing them with ADHD at rates that defied belief, pushing them toward drugs to make them sit still and behave more like the girls in the class. We were told that masculinity itself was the enemy, that strength, stoicism, protection, provision, all of it was somehow oppressive. Remember when the American Psychological Association declared traditional masculinity a mental health issue? That wasn't satire. That was official policy from one of the most powerful psychological organizations on the planet. Fast forward through the endless campaigns. The future is female. Men need to do better. It's believe all women that kill all men, trending on social media while people laughed it off as a joke. Universities with Title IX kangaroo courts, where a man could lose everything on an accusation alone. Family courts, where fathers became weekend visitors and walking ATMs at best, villains at worst. Media portraying men as bumbling idiots in every commercial, every sitcom, the dumb dad who can't change a diaper without causing a disaster, the incompetent husband saved by his all knowing wife. And then the dating market collapsed. Women, armed with endless options on apps, riding the carousel through their 20s, then suddenly hitting their 30s, wondering why the high value men they ignored for years weren't lining up to commit. We watched it happen in real time. Men started reading the writing on the wall. They saw marriage rates plummet, divorce rates where women initiate 80%, and the financial ruin that followed for men. They saw birth rates collapsing across the Western world. They saw passports being bros before the term even existed. You saw guys building lives in Southeast Asia, Latin America, Eastern Europe, where they were still appreciated. And then the ultimate red pill, the lockdown years. Men realized they didn't need much: a laptop, an internet connection, a gym membership, some crypto, a few good friends online, and they were happier than they'd ever been in relationships that drained them dry. That's when men going their own way morphed into something bigger. It wasn't just about avoiding marriage anymore, it was about avoiding the entire matrix. Men walking away, NMTWA became a movement without leaders, without meetings, just millions of individual men quietly opting out of dating apps that hated them, opting out of universities that saw them as predators, opting out of corporate jobs where HR waited to pounce on any wrong word, opting out of a consumer culture that shamed them for existing while demanding they pay for everything. And society didn't notice at first. Women kept making those TikTok videos, you know, the ones sitting in their cars crying, "Where have all the good men gone?" As if the good men hadn't been right there the whole time, being told they weren't good enough because they earned less than six figures, weren't 6 feet tall, didn't have six pack abs. As if those same women hadn't spent years swiping left on decent guys while chasing the top 5% who would never commit. The videos were endless. I'm 35, successful, independent, and I can't find a man who'll step up. Translation: I can't find a man better than the ones I ignored who'll now wife me up after I've had my fun. But something shifted. The complaints got louder. The loneliness epidemic hit women hard. Mental health crises skyrocketed. OnlyFans millionaires discovered that digital attention doesn't keep you warm at night. And then the economy started cracking, inflation through the roof. Groceries that cost $200 a week now costing $500. Credit card debt at all-time highs. Women who hold the majority of the new jobs created in the last decade, government jobs, HR jobs, education jobs, administrative roles, suddenly watching AI come for those positions first. ChatGPT doesn't need diversity training. It doesn't take maternity leave. It doesn't file sexual harassment claims. It's coming, and it's coming fast. Meanwhile, the men who checked out, they're fine. They're lifting weights in home gyms. They're trading crypto from beaches in Thailand. They're building businesses that run on autopilot. They're playing video games without guilt. They're sleeping 8 hours a night without someone nagging them about taking out the trash often enough. Their blood pressure is down. Their bank accounts are up. Their peace is undisturbed. They look at the news, digital IDs rolling out across Europe, CBDCs being tested, social credit systems in the early stages, and they just shrug. Not my circus, not my monkeys. And now this: Cynthia Erivo, talented actress, no one denies that, appears on the cover of British GQ's Men of the Year 2025. Not Woman of the Year, not Icon of the Year, Man of the Year, alongside actual men like Pierce Brosnan. But make no mistake, she's one of the featured covers. The magazine justifies it by talking about an era of hate and fluidity and breaking boundaries. Cynthia herself identifies as queer, has spoken about not fitting neatly into boxes, and displayed what some call masculine energy when she physically protected Ariana Grande from an overzealous fan at a premiere. Fair enough, that took guts. But the title is literally Man of the Year. Think about what this means. The word man no longer requires being male, it's just a vibe, a social construct, a hat you can put on when it benefits you and take off when it doesn't. You can be Woman of the Year in one magazine, Man of the Year in another, and demand everyone respect your pronouns while collecting awards meant for the opposite sex. And the kicker? Most men saw this news and didn't care, didn't rage post, didn't boycott GQ. Who would notice anyway? Just scrolled past. Because why would they care about protecting the definition of a word that society spent 50 years telling them was toxic? This is what total system detachment looks like. When you've been told for generations that your natural instincts are dangerous, that your role as protector and provider is patriarchal oppression, that your very existence is problematic, eventually you believe it enough to walk away. And once you walk away, you don't come running back when the system that pushed you out suddenly needs you again. You don't care if they redefine your identity. You already built a new one without their approval. Women are now discovering what men have always known. The world is hard. It's unfair. It doesn't care about your feelings. There are no participation trophies in real life. The electricity bill doesn't get paid because you're having a tough day. The landlord doesn't accept "I'm a strong, independent woman" as rent. The dating market doesn't reward you for finally being ready to settle just because your biological clock is screaming. And when things get really dark, when the economy collapses, when the power grid fails, when civil unrest hits the streets, there won't be any white knights riding in to save the day. Those men are at home, minding their business, protecting their peace. I've seen the videos. Women breaking down on social media. I can't do this alone. I thought I didn't need a man, but inflation is killing me. My job is gone. My debt is crushing me. I need help. Welcome to reality. The same reality men have been navigating without safety nets for decades. No VAWA funding for male victims of domestic violence, no Believe All Men, no infinite second chances in family court, no government programs specifically for single fathers, just figure it out or fail. And now the privileges are evaporating too. The assumption that a man will always step in during a crisis, the expectation that someone bigger and stronger will handle the heavy lifting, literally and figuratively, the cultural deference, the lower prison sentences, the benefit of the doubt in dangerous situations. All of it built on the backs of men who were told none of it was appreciated. Well, guess what? Those men heard you. They really heard you. And they left. Let me paint this picture for you even clearer, because some of you still think this is just about one magazine cover, one actress, one moment in time. It's not. This is the culmination of a 50-year psychological operation that started the day they decided little boys were defective little girls. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Go back to the 1970s. The same people who told you secondhand smoke was harmless were telling schools that boys were broken. Ritalin prescriptions exploded. Single mother households skyrocketed after no fault divorce became the law of the land. Fathers went from being the head of the household to being a visitor with a child support debit card. And every step of the way, the media cheered it on. Women need men like fish need bicycles. Remember that bumper sticker? Cute, real cute. Until the fish started drowning. Fast forward again. By the 1990s, the message was in every classroom. Male energy is dangerous. Male sexuality is predatory. Male competition is toxic. They took away dodgeball because someone might get hurt. They took away recess because boys were using it to, God forbid, run around and burn energy. They started grading homework on neatness and compliance instead of content because girls were naturally better at sitting still and coloring inside the lines. Boys started dropping out in record numbers, not dropping out of high school, dropping out of society. They went to their rooms, they discovered video games, they discovered porn, they discovered that the outside world hated them and their bedroom was safe. And nobody noticed. By the early 2000s, the universities had become hostile territory. Male enrollment started its free fall. Today in the United States, there are millions more women with college degrees than men. The gap is widening every single year. And what did we do? We celebrated. Girls rule, boys drool. We put out articles saying men were obsolete. We had feminists on television literally saying the world would be better with a lot fewer men. We turned the education system into a giant pink collar factory that produces debt loaded administrative assistants and HR representatives while trade sat empty and infrastructure began to crumble because nobody was raising sons who wanted to climb poles, fix engines, or pour concrete anymore. And the dating market, my God, the dating market. Women were told they could have it all: the career, the travel, the body count, the master's degree, the boss babe lifestyle. And then at 35 or 38, they could snap their fingers and a loving, loyal, high earning husband would materialize out of thin air like a Disney prince. Only he didn't. Because the men who would have been those husbands 10 years earlier had watched their own fathers get destroyed in divorce court. They had watched their older brothers pay alimony to women who cheated on them. They had watched their friends lose their homes, their kids, their life savings because they said, I do. They looked at the data. 70 to 80% of divorces initiated by women, men losing custody 85% of the time, lifetime alimony in some states, false accusations used as weapons. They did the math and they said hard pass. Then came the apps: Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, all of them. Women got flooded with attention. The average woman on a dating app is approached by dozens, sometimes hundreds of men per week. The average man below the top 10% gets almost zero. Women started treating men like Pokemon cards. Got to catch the rarest ones. Trade up forever. Hypergamy went into overdrive. The 666 rule became gospel. 6 feet tall, six pack abs, six-figure income. Anything less, and you were invisible. And when those same women hit the wall at 34, 35, 36, and suddenly wanted the family they swore they didn't need, the men they ignored were nowhere to be found. They had either left the country, built a fortress of solitude, or simply stopped caring. That's when the crying video started. You've seen them. Beautiful woman in her SUV, mascara running, voice cracking. I'm 37. I have my own house. I make good money. I'm educated. I go to therapy. Yeah. Where are all the good men? Ma'am, they were in your DMs at 26 and you called them broke because they made 75,000 a year and drove a 2012 Honda Civic. They watched you post pictures on yachts with guys who would never commit. They watched you say you didn't want kids and then panic buy sperm at 39. They watched you mock marriage and then wonder why nobody wants to marry you. They didn't disappear. You filtered them out. Meanwhile, the economy was shifting under everyone's feet. The jobs that women flooded into, government, education, healthcare administration, nonprofits, marketing, HR, started automating. AI doesn't care about your gender studies degree. AI doesn't need 6 weeks of paid maternity leave. AI doesn't sue for a hostile work environment because someone used the wrong pronoun. LinkedIn is already filled with laid off diversity officers wondering why no one is hiring for chief empathy officer anymore. McKinsey put out a report. Yes, the same McKinsey that told us DEI was the future, saying that up to 45% of tasks performed by women in the workforce are at high risk of automation in the next decade. The trades, construction, plumbing, electrical, welding, less than 5% exposure. Guess who never encouraged their daughters to pick up a wrench? Guess who still calls those jobs menial and beneath women? And the debt. Sweet Jesus, the debt. American women now hold almost two-thirds of the total student loan debt, over $1 trillion. They were sold the lie that a degree in communications or psychology would pay off. It didn't. They're making 45,000 a year with 80,000 in loans, living in cities where rent is 3 grand a month, maxed out on credit cards because Instagram told them they deserved luxury handbags and bottomless brunch. Inflation is eating them alive. Eggs went from $2 to $9 a dozen in some places. Gas is $6 a gallon in California. And there's no husband to split the bills with because they spent their prime years telling men they weren't needed. Now, watch this part closely because this is where it gets brutal. For decades, men were the default protectors. When the ship sank, women and children first, enforced by men who were willing to die. When the house caught fire, men ran into the flames. When an intruder kicked in the door at 3 a.m., men grabbed the gun or the baseball bat and stood between danger and their family. When society needed bridges built, tunnels dug, wars fought, garbage collected at 4 a.m. in the snow, men did it. And in return, they were called toxic, privileged, oppressors, told to sit down, shut up, and check their privilege. So they did. They sat down, they shut up, and now they're gone. Women are discovering that equality means carrying your own groceries up 4 flights of stairs when the elevator is broken. It means changing your own tire on the side of the highway at night. It means walking to your car in a dark parking garage, hoping the guy catcalling you is just talking. It means realizing that the gender pay gap disappears when you account for danger pay over time and jobs that will literally kill you. It means learning that the reason men earned more is because they were willing to lose fingers, lungs, and years off their lives to keep the lights on for everyone else. I want you to think about something that almost nobody is saying out loud yet. In every major city right now, there are apartment buildings where the average age of the single female tenants is climbing fast. Cats are multiplying. Wine consumption is through the roof. And the only male voices they hear are coming from true crime podcasts warning them about men. These women are lonely. They're in debt. They're scared. And they're starting to realize that the strong, independent woman fantasy only works when there are still strong, dependent men in the background keeping civilization running. And the men are in the gym at 5 a.m. The men are day trading meme coins from a balcony in Medellin. The men are welding underwater pipelines in the Gulf of Mexico for 200 grand a year, no degree required. The men are building cabins in the mountains with Starlink and solar panels, growing their own food, and laughing at TikTok videos of women crying about dating. The men are forming brotherhoods, not the fake corporate male ally garbage, but real ones or Tigyan, where they lift each other up, share leads on remote work, teach each other skills, and never ever let a woman's opinion dictate their self worth again. That's what men walking away really means. It's not whining, it's not incels and basements. It's millions of capable, competent men who looked at the contract society was offering and said, no, thank you. They looked at marriage and saw a 50% failure rate with a 90% financial destruction rate for the man. They looked at dating and saw endless entitlement and zero reciprocity. They looked at fatherhood and saw family courts that treat fathers like criminals. They looked at the culture and saw themselves portrayed as predators, buffoons, or disposable utilities. And they quietly, calmly, collectively walked away. And now the bill is coming due, not for the men. They prepaid in peace. The bill is coming due for everyone else. We're already seeing the early stages. Power outages that last longer because there aren't enough linemen. Construction projects delayed for years because nobody wants to work 60 hours a week in the sun anymore. Supply chain breakdowns because truck drivers are aging out and no young men are replacing them. Birth rates in free fall. South Korea just hit 0.72 children per woman. That's not a birth rate, that's demographic suicide. Japan is closing schools by the thousands because there are no kids. Italy is paying people to move to dying villages. The entire Western world is aging into oblivion because women wanted careers first and family second. And men decided if they weren't wanted as husbands and fathers, they weren't going to stick around as sperm donors and ATMS. And the craziest part, even now, even after all this, many women still don't get it. They think men are just intimidated by their success. They think if men would just man up, everything would go back to the way it was. They don't understand that the old deal is dead. Men are not coming back to a burning building to save people who spent years telling them they were the arsonists. That's why the Cynthia Erivo Man of the Year thing is so poetic. They finally took the last thing that belonged to men, the literal word man, and handed it to a woman. And men looked at it, shrugged, and went back to the gym because the word doesn't matter anymore. The responsibilities that came with it, those are gone too. If being a man is just a costume you can put on for a magazine cover, then being a protector, a provider, a builder, a fixer, a sacrificial lamb, all of that is optional now. Congratulations, you wanted equality. You're about to get it good and hard. Women are about to learn what men have always known. The world does not love you just because you're a woman. The universe does not owe you safety. There is no cosmic HR department you can call when life gets unfair. There are no more white knights, no more simps, no more beta providers waiting in the wings. Those men evolved, they adapted, they survived by walking away, and they're not coming back. Let me take you into some of the private groups, the forums, the Discord servers, the Telegram channels where men actually talk when no one is watching. No cameras, no virtue signaling, no women recording for content, just men. Thousands of them, hundreds of thousands across the planet. What you see there would tarot BJ break the average person's brain. You see screenshots of women on dating apps with bios that say no men under 6 feet, no men under 100,000, no conservatives, no Trump voters, must love my 3 cats and my OnlyFans. And the men just laugh. Not angry laugh, not bitter laugh, the laugh of a man who has zero intention of ever replying. They post pictures of their passports stamped in Thailand, Colombia, Poland, Vietnam. They post their crypto portfolios hitting new all time highs while living on $2,000 a month in paradise. They post gym progress pics with captions like, "She said I wasn't tall enough, so I added 2 inches to my deadlift instead." They trade job leads for remote 6 figure tech positions that let them work from anywhere. They share videos of themselves on motorcycles in the mountains with no caption at all because none is needed. Peace speaks for itself. These aren't broken men. These aren't losers. These are engineers, doctors, entrepreneurs, tradesmen, veterans, former athletes, guys who used to be blue pilled simps who finally woke up. They have options, they have skills, they have money, they have freedom, and they have zero interest in coming back to a society that spent 20 years telling them they were the problem. The only time they even think about women anymore is when a new crying TikTok hits the timeline and they drop it in the group chat for entertainment, like watching wildlife documentaries about animals that haven't figured out the watering hole is poisoned. And the women keep making the same videos over and over like a glitch in the matrix. I did everything right. I got the degree. I got the job. I traveled. I slept with whoever I wanted. I'm in therapy. I love myself. Why am I alone? Because you spent your youth optimizing for everything except building a family with a good man when he was willing and you were in your prime. You treated the men who wanted to commit like backup plans while you chased excitement. You listened to women who were divorced 3 times telling you marriage is a trap. You believed the lie that your value stays the same forever while a man's value only goes up. And now biology doesn't care about your LinkedIn profile. Biology doesn't care about your follower count. Biology doesn't negotiate. And I want you to understand something that almost no mainstream outlet will ever say out loud. The loneliness epidemic hitting women right now is not bad luck. It is cause and effect. It is the direct result of millions of individual choices made over 2 decades, amplified by social media, dating apps, and a culture that told women they could have it all without sacrifice. And now the chickens are coming home to roost. The wall is undefeated. Father Time swings with a sledgehammer. And there is no male attention safety net anymore because the men who used to provide it have better things to do. Look at the data, look at the numbers. In the United States, 45% of women aged 25 to 44 are projected to be single and childless by 2030. That's not a typo. 45%. That's almost half of an entire generation of women who will have no husband, no children, and no family support structure when they're 65 and Social Security has collapsed. In the UK, it's even worse. In Germany, in Australia, in Canada, same story. Japan is 20 years ahead on this timeline, and it's a horror show. Women in their 50s living alone with no children, no savings, working dead end jobs because they followed the strong independent script and woke up one day to realize the script had no second act. And the state is broke. The welfare state that women have relied on for decades, single mother benefits, subsidized housing, food stamps, child tax credits, all of it funded by male taxpayers, is mathematically doomed. The ratio of workers to retirees is collapsing. In the US, it was 7 workers per retiree when Social Security started. Today, it's less than 3. By the time today's 35-year-old woman retires, it'll be under 2. And those workers, many of them are men who have opted out, men who moved abroad, men who minimized their taxable income, men who said, if I'm not going to have a family anyway, why would I work 80 hours a week to pay for someone else's? This is the part nobody wants to say out loud, but I will. Women have enjoyed a multi decade privilege bubble built almost entirely on the assumption that men would never stop showing up, that men would keep paying the majority of taxes, keep doing the dangerous jobs, keep inventing the technology, keep maintaining the infrastructure, keep protecting the borders, keep stepping in during crises, all while being told they were the villains. That bubble has popped. The men showed up, looked around, and realized the game was rigged against them from birth. And instead of raging or begging or negotiating, they simply left the field. That's what MWA really is. It's the largest act of civil disobedience in human history, and almost nobody saw it coming because it's silent. There are no protests, there are no leaders, there are no demands. Just millions of men living their best lives while the system that hated them slowly implodes. They're not angry anymore. Anger is stage 1. This is stage 5. Total indifference. And now we circle back to Cynthia Erivo and GQ's Man of the Year. This is the establishment desperately trying to paper over the gaping hole where men used to be. They can't admit that men have walked away, so instead they redefine man to include women. They put a woman on the cover and call it progress. They tell you gender is fluid, that titles don't matter, that anyone can be anything. Fine. Enjoy your word games. The men already left the building. They don't need the word man to know who they are. They don't need validation from a fashion magazine that sells $3,000 handbags to women drowning in credit card debt. They don't need awards or titles or social approval. They have peace. They have freedom. They have options. Women wanted to be men? Cool. Go be men. Go register for the draft. Go work 80 hours a week on oil rigs. Go fight in the trenches if World War III kicks off. Go pay 70% of the taxes while getting zero reproductive rights. Go approach strangers in bars and get rejected 90% of the time. Go build the houses, fix the power lines, empty the bedpans in nursing homes, die 10 years earlier from stress and overwork. Go do all the things men were shamed for doing while being told they were privileged for doing them. But that's not what's happening, is it? They want the title. They want the magazine cover. They want the applause for breaking boundaries. But they don't want the responsibilities. They want to be called Man of the Year while still getting to cry in TikTok videos about needing a man to save them from inflation. They want to have their cake and eat it too, forever. But the cake is gone. The bakery closed. The baker walked away. I want you to think about the next 10 years. Really think about it. Central bank digital currencies rolling out. Social credit systems being tested in Europe. AI replacing white collar jobs en masse. Housing prices still insane. Rents through the roof. Birth rates collapsing. Retirement systems insolvent. Climate lockdowns. 15-minute cities. Digital IDs. All of it coming faster than people realize. And who do you think is going to be hit hardest by all of this? The people who spent decades being shielded from reality by men who were told their protection was oppression. The men saw this coming. That's why they prepared. That's why they got their money out of fiat. That's why they learned skills. That's why they built networks of other men. That's why they got passports. That's why they got in shape. That's why they prioritized peace over pussy. They knew the party was ending and they refused to be the last ones holding the bag. Women are about to learn a lesson that men have known since they were boys. Nobody is coming to save you. There is no prince. There is no government check that fixes loneliness. There is no amount of therapy that makes childlessness hurt less at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning when you're 50 and alone. There is no glow up that reverses a decade of poor choices. There is only reality, and reality is the ultimate red pill. So when you see another woman named Man of the Year, understand what you're really seeing. The death rattle of a dying matriarchy that finally pushed too far. The men didn't fight back. They didn't argue. They didn't protest. They just left. And now the women get to live with the world they demanded. No filters, no safety nets, no simps, no white knights, just them, their cats, their wine, their debt, and the consequences of their actions echoing in an empty apartment. And the men are on a beach somewhere, cold drink in hand, watching the sunset, not even thinking about the West anymore, because all roads lead away from the plantation now. All roads lead to peace. Let's go deeper now, because most people still think this is some kind of phase. They think men are just taking a break. They think if women change their dating profiles, lower their standards a little, start offering homemade sandwiches and traditional values again, the men will come flooding back like it's 1955 and the war just ended. That's not going to happen. The men who left are not hiding in their mother's basements waiting for a good girl to save them. They're gone. Geographically, financially, emotionally, spiritually gone. And the ones still in the West are operating on monk mode, ghost mode, gray man mode. They're invisible on purpose. They show up to work, crush their KPIs, collect their check, hit the gym, stack their crypto, and disappear into the night. You will never know they exist unless they decide you're worth knowing, and the odds of that are approaching zero. Let's talk about the passport phenomenon for a minute, because the mainstream media keeps trying to paint passport bros as desperate sex tourists chasing 20-year-old virgins. That's propaganda. The average passport bro today is 35 to 45, makes six figures remotely, or owns a small business, speaks at least passable Spanish or Thai, has a second passport or residency in progress, and dates women who are feminine, pleasant, fit, and under 30 with zero children. He's not paying for it. He's not mail ordering anyone. He's simply refusing to participate in a Western dating market where the average 34-year-old woman has the body count of a rock star, the debt of a small corporation, and the entitlement of a Saudi prince. Go look at the statistics coming out of Colombia, Brazil, Thailand, Philippines, Poland, Hungary, Romania right now. Marriage rates between local women and foreign men are exploding. Not old retired guys, young, fit, high value Western men who woke up, got their money right, got their passports, and left. The women in those countries are not perfect, but they didn't grow up marinated in third wave feminism and Instagram delusion. They still believe a man is the prize if he's strong, calm, and capable. They cook, they clean, they dress feminine. They don't argue about who takes out the trash because they're happy the trash is taken out at all. And in return, these men are building families, having multiple children, and living lives that would cost them millions in the West. Meanwhile, back home, the single women are making reels with captions like, high value women don't chase men, they replace them with peace and plants. Cool story. Enjoy replacing intimacy with succulence. Enjoy telling yourself your cat is your soulmate while you're on SSRIs and white wine box number 3 for the week. The data doesn't lie. Female happiness has been in free fall since 2008 across every Western country, despite women having more rights, more education, more corporate jobs, more everything than at any time in human history. The Journal of Happiness Studies, Gallup polls, General Social Survey, all of them show the same trend. The more liberated women become, the more miserable they report being. Why? Because liberation sold them a lie. It told them they could live like the top 5% of men. Endless casual sex, no commitments, high flying career, travel the world, without understanding that the top 5% of men can do that because they're the top 5%. The average woman trying to live like Chad ends up used, abused, and confused at 40 with nothing to show for it but trauma and a passport full of stamps. Now, let's talk about the coming labor catastrophe that nobody wants to name. The infrastructure of the entire Western world is held together by men who are aging out fast. The average age of a skilled tradesperson in the United States right now is 55. 55. 10 years from now, half of them will be retired or dead. And who's replacing them? Nobody. Gen Z boys watch their fathers or grandfathers come home broken from jobs that destroyed their bodies for ungrateful families that divorced them anyway. They looked at the trade schools that were mocked as dropout factories and said, yeah, no thanks. They looked at the military that's gone woke and said, fight for what exactly? They looked at police forces that are vilified and defunded and said, get stabbed for $22 an hour, pass. The result? We're already seeing blackouts in California because there aren't enough linemen. Bridges are literally falling down because inspection crews are understaffed. Water treatment plants are running on skeleton crews of 60-year-olds who can't retire because their pensions got raided. And when the big one hits 173, when the next solar flare takes out the grid, or when the cyber attack everybody knows is coming finally lands, there won't be enough competent men who give a damn to fix it. The men who could have fixed it are in Bali running dive shops or in Paraguay raising cattle. The men who are still here are doing the absolute minimum to keep their own families alive and nothing more. And the government knows this. That's why they're panicking about birth rates. That's why they're floating ideas like taxing single men extra or forcing 18-year-olds into national service or importing millions of military age males from the third world to fill the gaps. But those replacements don't know how to maintain a nuclear power plant. They don't know how to splice fiber optic cable underwater. They don't know how to keep a 737 in the air or a refinery from exploding. And most importantly, they have zero loyalty to a civilization that hates them on arrival. This is collapse in slow motion, not Mad Max tomorrow, but a long, grinding decline where everything slowly stops working and nobody knows how to make it work again because the men who knew walked away and took the knowledge with them. But look at what's happening with the power grid right now. The North American Electric Reliability Corporation puts out an annual report every year warning that large parts of the United States are at elevated risk of blackouts. Why? Aging infrastructure and not enough qualified people to maintain it. Texas almost lost its grid in 2021 because of winter storms. California has rolling blackouts every summer now because there aren't enough people willing to climb poles in 110-degree heat for wages that haven't kept up with inflation since 1998. And every year, more of the old timers retire and aren't replaced. Same story in construction. The Associated General Contractors of America says 70% of construction firms can't find enough skilled workers. Projects are delayed years. Costs are exploding. Housing becomes unaffordable because we physically cannot build enough units with the manpower we have left. And again, who's going to fix this? The women who spent 20 years being told STEM was for girls but chose gender studies anyway? The immigrants who were promised free everything but never taught how to read a blueprint? This is what happens when you tell an entire generation of boys they're toxic for wanting to build things with their hands. This is what happens when you destroy the nuclear family and then act shocked that young men don't want to slave away to support children they'll only see every other weekend. And the final, cruelest irony, the very system that demonized men now needs them more than ever, and they're not coming back. You can't shame a man into dying on an oil rig for a country that calls him a rapist for looking at a woman too long. You can't guilt a man into working 3 jobs to pay taxes for welfare programs that exclude him because he's the wrong gender. You can't threaten a man with loneliness when he's already chosen solitude over misery. The men figured out that peace is the ultimate luxury. Real peace. Not the fake peace of a nagging wife and screaming kids and a mortgage that owns you for 30 years. Real peace, waking up when you want, eating what you want, training your body, building your wealth, traveling the world, surrounding yourself only with people who add value. No drama, no ultimatums, no threats of divorce rape, no waking up at 45 to an empty house and an emptier bank account because she wasn't happy. That's the red pill that can't be unswallowed. Once a man tastes real freedom, real peace, real self ownership, There is no going back to the cage. You can offer him supermodel looks, a seven-figure income, a unicorn traditional wife who cooks and cleans and never argues, and he'll still say no if it means giving up his sovereignty because he knows the unicorn doesn't exist in the West anymore. And even if she did, the state would turn her into a weapon the moment she got bored. So when you see another Man of the Year award go to a woman, understand it for what it is, a participation trophy for a civilization that ran out of real men willing to play the game. The trophy doesn't come with the responsibilities, it doesn't come with the draft card, the 60-hour work weeks, the dangerous jobs, the early death from stress, the lifetime of being told you're the problem. It's just a shiny sticker without the price tag. And the men looked at that deal and said, keep the sticker, we'll keep our lives. Now we arrive at the part that keeps even the strongest men up at night when they let themselves think about it too long. The black pill data sets that no university, no government agency, and certainly no mainstream media outlet will ever put on a PowerPoint slide in public. These are the numbers that prove this isn't opinion, this isn't anger, this isn't a phase, this is mathematics. This is biology meeting ideology in a dark alley and ideology getting curb stomped. First, the happiness graphs. Since 1972, the General Social Survey has asked Americans one simple question. Taken all together, how would you say things are these days? Would you say that you are very happy, pretty happy, or not too happy? For men, happiness has been remarkably stable over 50 years. Slight dips during recessions, slight rises during booms, but overall flat. For women, a straight, relentless decline that began the exact moment second wave feminism went mainstream and has never stopped. By 2024, women under 35 were the least happy demographic in America, less happy than women during the Great Depression, less happy than women in the 1970s who supposedly lived under the boot of the patriarchy. The more freedom they got, the more degrees, the more corporate jobs, the more sexual partners, the more government programs, the worse they reported feeling. And the gap between single women and married women, the largest it has ever been in recorded history. Married women are still reasonably happy. Single women are in free fall. Next, the fertility numbers. South Korea now at 0.72 children per woman. Taiwan at 0.87. Italy at 1.24. Spain at 1.23. The United States just hit 1.62 in 2024, the lowest in our history and still falling. Replacement rate is 2.1. Anything under 1.8 guarantees population collapse within 2 generations. Anything under 1.5 is irreversible without massive immigration that no society has ever absorbed peacefully at that scale. We are watching entire civilizations commit demographic suicide in real time because women decided children were a burden and men decided if they weren't going to have families anyway, they weren't going to finance someone else's. And who is having the kids that are still being born? The top 20% of men and the bottom 80% of women. The bottom 80% of men are being completely shut out of reproduction. That's not hyperbole, that's genetic data from dating app studies, sperm donor statistics, and DNA ancestry services showing that a small handful of men are fathering the majority of children, while the vast majority of men die childless. We are returning to pre civilizational mating patterns because feminism and technology removed all the guardrails that forced high value men to commit to one woman. The result? A tiny elite of Chads and a massive underclass of invisible men who now refuse to participate in a society that erased them from the gene pool. Now look at the old age crisis that's already here. In Japan right now, there are elderly women dying alone in their apartments, undiscovered for weeks because they have no children and no husband. They call them korokushi, lonely deaths. over 30,000 a year. The government has special cleanup crews for it. Diapers now sell more for adults than for babies in Japan. Nursing homes are overflowing with women who spent their lives being independent and now have nobody to visit them except paid caretakers who hate the job. The same pattern is starting in the United States. By 2035, 20% of American women over 65 will be childless. By 2050, it will be 30%. These women will have no family support structure when they're old, sick, and broke. They will be warehoused in understaffed facilities paid for by taxes from men who have no stake in the system because they were never allowed to have families of their own. And the cost? The actuarial tables say that a childless elderly woman costs the state 3 to 5 times more than one with children because there is no unpaid family labor to take care of her. Multiply that by tens of millions, and you understand why every Western pension system is mathematically doomed. The men who would have paid into the system to support their own mothers and eventually be supported by their own children have opted out. They saw the contract was fraudulent and they tore it up. Here's the part that almost no one is ready for. The last good man is already walking away. The very last one, the one who still fixes his elderly mother's sink for free, the one who still shovels the neighbor's driveway after a blizzard, the one who still stops to help a stranger change a tire, the one who still believes in duty and honor and showing up even when no one appreciates it. That guy is 55 right now. He's tired. He's watching his retirement evaporate to inflation. He's watching his sons get destroyed in divorce court. He's watching society spit on everything he sacrificed for. And when he finally retires or dies, there will be no one to replace him. The knowledge dies with him. The willingness dies with him. The sense of obligation dies with him. And that's when the lights start going out for real. Not metaphorically, literally. When the last competent men who still give a damn are gone, the grid will fail more often. The water will stop running cleanly. The supply chains will break permanently. The hospitals will run out of people willing to work 80-hour weeks for wages that don't cover rent. And the women who spent decades telling men they weren't needed will be standing in the dark, holding their useless degrees, wondering why no one is coming to save them. This is not revenge. This is not punishment. This is physics. You remove the load bearing beams from a building, and eventually the roof caves in. Men were the load bearing beams of civilization, not because they're magically better human beings, because biology and culture assigned them roles that required sacrifice, risk, and competence under pressure. When you spend 50 years telling those beams they're toxic and unnecessary, they eventually stop holding up the roof. And when the roof collapses, the people who spent years cheering as the beams were removed will be the ones buried under the rubble. So when Cynthia Erivo or any other woman gets handed Man of the Year, understand it for exactly what it is: the victory parade for a war that was already lost. The men didn't lose. They surrendered on purpose. They laid down their weapons, walked off the battlefield, and built a new life somewhere the war can't find them. And now the victors get to rule over the ruins. The story is almost over. The credits are rolling. The theater lights are coming up. And the men are already in the parking lot, engines running, heading somewhere warm where their presence is still celebrated instead of criminalized. All roads lead to MWA now. There is no reverse gear. There is no grand reconciliation. There is no healing the divide seminar that fixes this. The contract was broken beyond repair. The trust is gone forever. The future belongs to the men who walked away while there was still time, and to the children they're having in countries that never hated them for being born male. The West had its chance. It spent it telling half its population they were the problem. Now that half is gone. And the silence you hear isn't anger anymore, it's peace. What did you think about all this? Do you agree? Do you see the signs in your own life, your own city, your own family? Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single one. If this hit hard, smash that like button, share this video with every man you know who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more truth bombs that the algorithm tries to bury. Like the video if you liked it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you liked the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.